I can. I think it's one of the most beautiful places that I've ever been involved with, and I've spent most of the last 30 years living and working in quite beautiful regions and organisations. This is a very, very special experience. And I say that first because I believe it colours everything else. So that when one walks to a meeting or a lecture, you're walking in some of the most beautiful gardens and settings. I think the house itself is lovely. The facilities everywhere are glorious. And I think one is softened amidst the stress of an intense course by those experiences. So I think the place is very special. On top of that, I find the people unusual in their generosity of spirit. Everyone is helpful and supportive. No one is too busy to answer a query. I did choose Ashridge in part because it offered me the opportunity of a small cohort, and I felt that might make the attention more personalised, and that's certainly been the case. I very much enjoy the content of the course as well. I'm challenged by it, sometimes perfectly naturally too much, but then that's also what I'm here for. I really enjoy the calibre of my colleagues, the diversity of age and world experience. We've got some executives who are in their late 40s, early 50s, who are looking to change career, and they've had positions of real responsibility elsewhere. And then we've got a lawyer at the other end of our cohort who's still stepping out into early work experiences. But we are 13, we are 11 different nationalities. So you can't be in a small group without being challenged by that environment. And that's also one of the things that I came for. With pleasure. We've just completed an 8-day period in which we completed 3 modules. So we completed personal impact with a presentation, an individual presentation to our small groups. We completed embedding sustainability with a live case consulting experience. I was extremely fortunate myself to be part of a group consulting to Dixon's Retail here in the UK. That was a very powerful experience and a very good one. And the third module that we finished was marketing. Now, all 3 of these have started at different times during the last 3 months. They all came together in an assessment period at the same time. So energy levels were very high, stress levels were very high. Both of those things, I think, worked reasonably well together. We did have 4 assessments in the week, and it was the first assessment period that we'd had. Specifically, the personal impact, interesting, challenging to have to deliver a presentation with 50% of the module mark based on yourself, but using the frameworks and the models that we had gone through. One could look at that and think perhaps that type of assessment is quite light, but the assessment criteria meant that really you had to be able to synthesise, be familiar with, and then on top learn about presentations. So some really good material provided, a lot of self-learning. I'd say perhaps, again for me, if it becomes too much like a do-it-yourself course, then we would lose some of the value of being here. Course tutor's outstanding on that particular module, and also very supportive and did informally give us sessions in between time. Embedding sustainability, amazing topic, should be mandatory. Every business school every higher education institution across the world. It's a big challenge, and I'm extremely humbled, I think, that I actually ended up here somewhat accidentally, and having the world's biggest challenge put in our faces. Extraordinary experience. Again, course tutors, excellent. The live case consulting that we did as a cohort in conjunction with our members was very diverse. So there were 3 different cases. And so we went to 3 very different areas of industry. Our particular group was able to deliver a really quite significant report to 7 members of the group senior management team here in Hemel Hempstead. Thankfully, we got the brief right. Thankfully, we delivered what was required, and we've had some really nice feedback connected with that. So it was a very positive and therefore a very powerful experience. A lot of learning on the way. And it wasn't just learning about sustainability either. It was learning about consulting, learning about presentations, learning how to work together as a group, which I think always has challenges. This particular one had a strong virtual element for us. We were the only group that had all of our meetings virtually until the last couple of days when we re-met here and had to put it together. So some big challenges there. Again, the learning is never just about the core and the module. The learnings about self, the learnings about others, the learnings about how to address the challenge as well, it feels like a 360 stretching exercise most of the time. Marketing was the second part of a module that was started in September. Again, we had assessment closing that. We'd had to submit a written assignment at the beginning of the week, and the other part of our assessment was a group presentation which was done on the day. So this was a new experience for all of us. We'd had within the week an assessment which had an extended time period, and we'd had to work as a group on evolving that, even if it had meant coming together at the last minute. This was, you've got 4 hours to pull something together. Again, enormously challenging, potentially a little bit difficult in retrospect and reflecting, simply because not all of the material that we were expected to present was actually covered in our lecture series. So some groups did extraordinarily well because they had marketing experience embedded in the group. Other groups, such as the one I was in, probably found that a bit challenging. I think that probably could be looked at. But overall, again, an outstanding module leader. All the experience you could wish for. I think some technical difficulties interfered with our communication with her, which I know have been resolved by the college, though, because of the virtual nature of our communication. The links just weren't working, so the discussion weren't able to happen, and therefore the feedback wasn't able to go wide enough to the group. We had a marketing masterclass to follow that, which I think was particularly interesting because it was about social media. And despite the snow, we were at least 2/3 of the EMBA and the MBA cohort were present for that. And that had some really recent stuff. So when we're talking about 2012 models from McKinsey, who are really just wrapping their heads around this and having the opportunity to talk to people in the industry who are connected with that all the time. Again, that's the value of the face-to-face. I don't think you can replace it. And I like the masterclass idea. It's sort of like the icing on the cake. It only makes sense when you've got the cake. So it was well positioned. I think it's an exceptional idea For us personally, as a group, it brings a whole new set of energies. And that changes the context in which we do things, changes the type of conversations we have. These tend to be, by nature of the part-time offer, older, more experienced people, and they're very, very diverse again. Perhaps more centred in the UK, but still from a wide industry background. We had a wonderful experience bonding with them in September. So as soon as the embers appear, it's a bit like our other half, the return of the family. So it's on the strength of relationship that was developed in that first module. The energy's been very, very positive. In essence, we're prepared for it, but we also looked forward to it. We also like having the balance of time as a smaller cohort and developing relationships and group work through that. You asked about, I think, some of the challenges of working with the embers. Really, that they're embers and not accessible all the time, if you like, except virtually. So some of the interesting learning has been how to be effective in both project task and relationship building virtually. And from our reading, we find that that's a challenge that is real and it's out in the workplace. And I think the balance that Ashridge has struck, it has been very good. I've enjoyed the experience. I enjoy the embers, and we've had a wonderful time getting back together. Still fantastic. But the immediate response is now underpinned by experience. So whilst it is intense and challenging, sometimes frustrating, it would be like that in any other context. I think my words for this particular experience are very real. Real for me as a person developing new skills through experience. Real in terms of the business world that I'm going to enter. I think we've touched on some of those, like the virtual experience, the live cases. I think you can find lots of threads there. But I think it's also very real in terms of what business management education needs to provide in order to match what the requirements of life in business are outside the walls of Ashridge. So real and relevant are my words for it still. And I really hope to survive the roller coaster experience. I think as a mature person, it's been difficult to return to study. This is a different type of study, so even if I was prepared for the standard academic approach, it both is and isn't. And there isn't a single point along my journey so far that I can't see relevance to, I hope, what I will be coming out of this.